Hi everyone, this is Heather Farrington, and today I'm going to be talking about how I make a comic. This is going to include everything from storyboarding, sketching, to inking and coloring, and everything in between, and I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. So first we're going to start with storyboarding. After the script is finished, I have it over to the right in the video, and you can see that each page has its own amount of panels, and each panel has individual things happening, including narration and what's happening in the panel and each character's dialogue. When you make a storyboard, you can use whatever you want, really. I just use a regular lined notebook. You can use a sketchbook, it doesn't matter, any scrap piece of paper. I used to just write them on just pieces of paper and just stick them in a notebook and use them later. These don't have to be perfect. As long as you understand what's going on in the panel, honestly, that's all that really matters. And then when I'm finished making the storyboard, I come up with a title, which you'll see on the end, and a little tagline to go with each comic. So once the storyboard is complete, I open up Clip Studio Paint, and I have a template saved for each comic page, so that way I don't have to go in and change the sizes and the format for each page. It just automatically opens up for the page, and that way it's always going to be consistent. If you're printing a comic, you're going to want to always have the same size pages, and where the panels end on each page always in the same place. It'll save you a lot of guff later, and it'll make your life so much easier. And then making panels is very easy. All you have to do is there's a tool to just move them around back and forth, and you can make them go off the page for a bleed effect if you'd like. I try to do this sometimes just to make it a little more interesting. There's even a pen tool in Clip Studio Paint where you can draw in different panels however shape you'd like. You can make circles and different kinds of shapes. I usually just stick with squares and rectangles just to make the overall look of my comic consistent. So now I start sketching on a new layer, and I use the pencil brush in Clip Studio Paint, which defaults to blue, but you could change this to any color that you'd like. And when you want to rough out where everything is going to be going, and this is the easiest time to change any of that. If you want to change anything later, the sketching is the easiest time to do this. Once you ink everything and put colors down, it's going to be a lot harder to change things. So you can see that on the left-hand side of the screen, that my older comic is there for reference, and I use this for color choices so I can keep consistent colors and keep consistent outfits, what everyone looks like, so that way they don't change drastically from the next page, because you can't always go by your memory and assume that you're going to remember everything. And remember, if you need to look up pictures of cars or buildings or machines because you don't know what they look like, feel free to use references. It's not cheating. Referencing is great to help you become a better artist. So when I start inking, I'm going to turn down the sketch opacity to somewhere around 20 to 30% so I can see it, but it's not really going to be in the way. You always want to start inking on a new layer. You can use any kind of brush you'd like. I prefer the G pen in Clip Studio Paint. I feel that the inking is very fluid. It actually has made me enjoy inking again. I really didn't like doing it in Photoshop when I was making comics in Photoshop. You don't have to go overboard with details. I do sometimes add little specks of dirt to things like the road, the grass, and things like that. But unless you want to go crazy with it, you don't have to do crazy details, especially if you have more of a cartoony style. After the inking layer is complete, I start flatting my colors out, and I do this by copying the inking layer and saving it as a new layer right underneath the ink layer. And I just fill in the areas with a paint bucket tool, nothing too crazy or fancy. And I do this by always saving a reference of my key colors I need for characters and for clothing. Anything that you're going to be using a lot, you want to have it saved backed up into a file. You can use a key color in Clip Studio Paint and in Photoshop, and I think possibly in other programs as well, but I haven't used too many of them. But you always want to save these colors for yourself later on, so you're not guessing on colors. You want to make sure, again, consistency is always the best thing to maintain. I start a shading layer by copying the flats layer and putting it on top of the flat layer. I select the ink layer, and then I fill in the flats layer, and then I reverse the colors. And it doesn't matter what colors you use as long as you pick a dark and a light tone, and so that way you can tell the difference between where the shading is and where the regular colors are going to be. I think I like using opposite colors, so here you can see me using yellow and purple because they're contrasting colors. There really is no wrong way how to do shading. I prefer doing cell shading just because it's pretty basic to do. Pretty much anyone can do it. It's not really that difficult. When you're done, you want to change the layer setting to multiply, and then you can go back and change the colors however you want to match the time of day or the setting wherever your characters happen to be. Now I started a layer just for lighting. Again, there's no real right or wrong way of doing this. Just always make sure that the light is coming from a consistent direction. I use softer brushes on the hair and then hard brushes on things like lips or metals or hard surfaces, things like that. And you don't have to go overboard with this either. You could do as much or as little lighting as you want. I started doing it recently just to add a little extra touch to the comic. The last thing I color is the backgrounds. What I do is I fill underneath each panel with a different block of color on a separate layer underneath all the other layers. You don't need to go crazy with drawing your backgrounds. What you want to do is you want to set up an establishing panel on the top of the page or in your first panel, and from there you can either refer back to that background or that area that you're in, especially in panels like where the characters aren't saying anything, where it's just an open area. But since this is very dialogue heavy, this page, I didn't think it was too important to keep referring back to where they're in the graveyard, because it's very consistent in the last chapter in this one that they're going to be in this graveyard. Also remember that you're going to have speech balloons covering your background, so sometimes you won't want to make a lot of details in your background because the balloons are going to be covering it up. The dialogue is always going to be more important. Also, when you're filling in the colors for your background, you want to make sure you match the time of the day or the setting that your characters are in. Use highlights and shadows for your background all in one go. Or you can put it on a separate layer. I just prefer to do it all in one layer just to make it easier for myself. But always remember, keep consistency, make sure lighting is consistent, make sure the shadows are consistent with where your characters are, where the sun is, wherever your lighting is. Just always consistency. So then you start a new layer to make your speech balloons. And Clip Studio Paint has its own speech balloon tool, so it always goes on a new layer, and as long as you keep it within the same object, you can connect your balloons together, merge them together, add like a line to connect them, add all your tails to the balloon. It makes it very easy. When you're making your speech balloons, you want to make sure there's enough space in between the edge of the balloon and your words, so it's not butting up against the edge of the balloon. You want to make sure it's readable and legible for your reader, and you want to make sure it looks nice as well. There's plenty of tools online. You can go further into this. So I use the frame tool in Clip Studio Paint to line up the edges of my panels and basically mask the speech balloons so it looks like they're going underneath it and beyond the top of the panel. And not only does this look nice, but it makes it so you avoid tangents, and the last thing you want is tangents in your art or in your speech balloons. So the end touches are really going to be up to you. What I do is I bring my finished comic as a ping file into Photoshop, and I add in the title and the copyright on the bottom and my name and the website. And you can do this however you'd like. I think it's always a good idea to put your name on everything you make, especially if you're going to be posting it to the internet. So what I do is I save several different files. I have a small ping that I upload to the website in the webcomic. The sizes I make are 950 pixels, and it's roughly about 1400 pixels long, but that varies from comic to comic. And then I have a TIFF file or a PDF file, which is saved in CMYK colors, and that's saved for printing specifically, and it's a high-res image. And then I always make some sort of website update image. When everything's finished, I upload the comic to my website and also my Patreon, and I use my update image on my social media, so Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, and sometimes even art when I remember. You could also upload your comic to sites like Taptastic or Online Webtoon. Personally, I cannot because sometimes I have not saved for work content, so that's out for me. I want to thank you all for watching my video, and I hope you learned something or have some new implementations for your own comics. Just remember, there's never going to be a right time to start making comics, so you just need to start as soon as you can. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, everyone!